Recruiting news in the SEC that shows just how much things have changed in college football.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thank you all, especially my everydayers, for helping make that the case. Does San Diego State contend in the new look Pac-12 this year? And three programs that I'm going to relate to the two-time back-to-back Masters champion Rory McIlroy. On today's show, which is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. The recruiting news out of the SEC. Yes, Florida picked up a big-time recruit in the class of 2027, but I'm talking today, as I mentioned in my open, about Jake Nawrot, the quarterback prospect out of the state of Illinois, committing to Kentucky, and first-year head coach Will Stein, who, from an on-paper standpoint, since he has taken over for the program that he grew up attending games at as a kid, it's going very well. Remember, Nebraska was going to have the guy in the transfer portal, Kenny Minchey, as their quarterback, the backup at Notre Dame, and not being able to beat out C.J. Carr, well, that's not exactly a knock against your abilities. He's going to be Kentucky's starter this year. And Cutter Boley's, of course, now down at Arizona State. But Kentucky going out and landing a guy like Nawrot, and there might be work to be done, probably is, to keep him verbally committed and then, signing with the Wildcats come December. This is the new world of college football. This is a guy who in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings is the number 40 overall player. He is bordering on 5-star quarterback status. These sorts of guys are not supposed to go to Kentucky. He's the number 2 rated quarterback in his class. Since when does that guy go? But this is the world we live in now, where Indiana has got the Heisman Trophy winner and number 1 overall pick in the draft. Where Kentucky can get a guy like this. Oregon tried to get in the fold here, by the way. And of course, Will Stein was Oregon's offensive coordinator. And I've pointed out for a long time that, his production for his quarterbacks has been good everywhere that he's been, every season he's been in OC, but he's an underrated recruiter. I think Kentucky fans and SEC fans are learning that right now because this is a recruiting splash. This is a guy that can go out and be a multi-year starter for the Wildcats and help them ascend out of the bottom of the SEC. The way Indiana did, and look, they did it with a transfer portal quarterback. We'll see what the Wildcats are this year. But landing Jake Nawrot, who's an awesome prospect, a guy whose film is really, really fun to watch, 6'4", 200 pounds, good athlete, accurate, throws really well when he is on the move. This is the sort of guy that can go out and run your system for several years and help you ascend in the conference. And yeah, it's going to be hard in the SEC. Other schools have got their quarterback recruits already. Faison Brandon is at Tennessee. But usually it was those types of brands that landed these sorts of recruits. Jared Curtis is at Vanderbilt, for goodness sake. Jared Curtis may very well start for the Commodores this year. He was committed to Georgia. Jared Curtis's recruitment in May of 2025, his verbal commitment day was down to Oregon and Georgia. That was it. That was it. He's from Nashville. And I look at Jared Curtis, I see a lot of Josh Allen. He then committed to Georgia only to later flip to Vanderbilt. This is the perfect encapsulation, these two guys, of which there are a lot of other examples across college football, where we're just seeing the ability of non-traditional brands to rise up and be relevant. And for all the negatives, and I share the sentiments that plenty of you have out there for all the negative elements of NIL and the transfer portal, this is an unquestioned positive. This is a statement, not just in this particular recruitment, but with all of these particular examples about the modern landscape of college athletics. Anybody can go out and be relevant. A few years ago in basketball, FAU was in the Final Four. Indiana just won the national championship. Look at the number of five-star prospects that are going into the Big 12. I believe it's more than ever before. Keyshawn Henderson is now at Houston. Ryder Lions is going to BYU. You know who else went after Ryder Lions? USC, Oregon. He's planning to go to BYU. This has been, I think, the best part about NIL and the portal is the way that it has leveled the playing field for acquiring talent, because the biggest biggest difference in roster composition between college sports and pro sports is, well, the best players always wind up going to the best schools. Whereas in pro sports, the best prospects go to the worst teams because you've got either the NBA draft lottery or, the NFL draft order is set directly based on how you finished the year before. And these sorts of guys didn't go to these sorts of programs, and now they are. And I do think that that is fun. I do think that that is exciting. Do I look at all the potential rule changes that I've discussed about a lot over the last several months during this offseason and say, hey, some of this needs to be reined in. Hey, some of this needs to be changed. I think this is a valid proposal. 5 for 5 is, to me, a good idea. Maybe only one free transfer unless your coach leaves and all this sort of stuff. Yes, that can absolutely be true. But there is a positive that I feel like gets really under discussed because the internet tends to be a far more negative place, and it's easy to go out and complain about things. People generally are 7 times more likely to leave a negative comment than a positive one. And I think that that's part of the way that these narratives get perpetuated. And it's important to go out and realize, hey, there is a big upside to everyone being able to pay players. And that players have a bunch of movement means, when they go to a big time school, if they're not playing there, well, they're going to go to another school where otherwise they never would have wound up. And so you've got Jake Nawrot committing to Kentucky. Huge statement for Will Stein and the Wildcats on the recruiting trail. Jared Curtis at Vanderbilt, Indiana being really good. Like, anything feels possible. Literally anything. And I do wonder how this impacts the coaching carousel in the coming years. Because look at a program like Purdue. Has not won a Big Ten conference football game in the last couple of years. And it's not easy to win at Purdue, but it also historically hasn't been impossible necessarily. Just as one example, that's not a traditional power brand. Does Purdue look at Indiana or the recruiting wins across the country for other schools or Big 12 programs and say, yeah, we're not doing enough, and then every 2 years they're firing their coach if it doesn't work? I don't know. I'm interested to find out. But Kentucky making a recruiting splash on the trail, landing Jake Nawrot, that's a big time pickup for Will Stein. He's got to keep him there. And stylistically, he's been very efficient in his career. 71% completion in 2025, 41 touchdowns to 2 picks. Will Stein is a high efficiency offensive play caller. That's the sort of structure he creates for his quarterback. Nawrot could slide into that perfectly and be a facilitator, execute the offense, and have a dynamic enough skill set to do a number of things at the quarterback position. But fundamentally, Will Stein likes a facilitator back there. And the stats will tell you that Nawrot is that kind of guy. So, quite the news. That's first. First time I've led the show with Kentucky football. But guess what? When you make a splash in the middle of April like that, it's warranted. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter at LockedOn_CFB. Let's go to the Pac-12. The new reconstructed Pac-12. Is San Diego State contending? First, this episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, where every possession matters, every matchup is magnified, and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. Here is what you'll like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. And during the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. You want to look at it all. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And if you are a college football fan, every Power 4 win total and Notre Dame is posted over at FanDuel.com. So anything you want that's college football related or NBA related or many other things, FanDuel has you covered. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Check them out at FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you for making this show your first listen or your first view every day. If you tune into every episode and want to level up, join the Locked On Everydayer Club. For $5 a month or $50 for the year, you get access to ad-free audio on podcasts, and you get to join the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, and there are other perks too. So click the link in the description below and join the Locked On Everydayer Club today. ESPN's S&P Plus rankings would have you believe that San Diego State is, in fact, a group of 6 college football playoff contender this coming year. I will have you believe the exact same thing. Their schedule, which I will break down in a moment, utterly fascinating. Now, the biggest hurdle that San Diego State faces this offseason is not the talent on their roster. They've brought in a lot of Power 4 transfers, not super highly rated guys, but that's kind of what you would expect when you're in the New World Pac-12. You're not going after the 4- and 5-star transfers, the guys that are trying to go. I know I was just talking about how everything has balanced out, but there's still a line. There's still a gap as a general rule. But San Diego State's gone out, pulled in a decent transfer portal class, a decent high school recruiting class, and they come in as the number 2 team in the Pac-12 according to S&P Plus. As we sit here in the middle of April, the heart of spring football, I think that's correct. I think it's absolutely correct. I was bullish on San Diego State being better than what their preseason win total was according to our friends at FanDuel last year. They haven't released one yet for the Aztecs. I'll be very curious once they do. But as far as G6 playoff teams go, on paper, it looks like there's a void, right? I've talked about this before. My everydayers know this, that over in the American, S&P Plus is very down on the American compared to the Pac-12 because of the coaching turnover. Summerall's out at Tulane. He's at Florida. You have Ryan Silverfield going from Memphis to Arkansas. Eric Morris going from North Texas to Oklahoma State. Like there's a lot of coaching and player value that was lost in the portal, and that's the other side of it, right? There are 2 doors to that particular conversation. But San Diego State, second in the Pac-12. Boise State, by the way, boy, S&P Plus loves them on paper. 39th in the country. Tulane preseason last year had the best group of 6 season of anybody. Yes, that includes JMU. That's why they were ranked higher. Tulane preseason last year was inside the top 45. I think they were in the low 40s. So big expectations for the Broncos. That's no surprise. Bringing this back to Sean Lewis and the Aztecs, though. San Diego State could have the sort of season where Sean Lewis puts his team in the playoff discussion and then is navigating the exact same path that John Summerall just walked, where he's trying to decide, do I keep coaching my team or do I go to the new team that has offered me a job because I'm a Power 4 head coach? That's a name to keep an eye on. And one of many reasons I wanted to bring up the Aztecs today. So their schedule has got 1 Power 4 opportunity on it. Now that isn't great. It is not. I will say they have one of the most unique schedules in all of college football on account of the fact that they alternate week by week. Home, road, home, road, home, road, home, road, home. That's how their season starts for the first 8 games. There's no bye in there. They don't have a bye until the first week in November. And then they close with Utah State. They go at Boise State. And then there's that wonderful Pac-12 flex schedule in which the league can match up the home teams and the road teams as they see fit to give themselves the best chance to go to the college football playoff, which I am a big fan of. So they start with Portland State, then they play at UCLA. Now, they have been known to give UCLA trouble a time or two in the past. I am more than a little interested to see if the continuity of a group of six like San Diego State is able to overcome the first year trying to put it all together early on following a difficult week 1 road game at Cal for UCLA and head coach Bob Chesney. Now, on paper, statistical matrices would have you think that UCLA is going to be a sizable favorite in that game. There's no line that has yet been released for it, but UCLA is only a 3.5-point dog at Cal in week 1. And UCLA's brought over a pretty darn good transfer portal class. And oh, by the way, don't forget, Nico Iamaleava is still UCLA's quarterback. A year ago at this time, that craziness was unfolding, and we were all waiting to see. And I remember it very well because it holds the record on this show, Locked On College Football, for being the most led with story on the program. 9 episodes in a row, almost 2 full weeks, where every day there was a new Nico story or a new Nico angle. There's a part of me that misses those days. The spring transfer portal was a grand and glorious time. I miss it fondly. Anyway, that's a selfish ambition, though. I understand why coaches don't want a spring portal because that is tough. But Portland State at UCLA, that's the only Power 4 for San Diego State. Their other Group of 6 non-conference games, they host JMU with head coach Billy Napier. Then they go at Toledo, who's usually a very good program in the MAC, but still a part of the MAC. Likely the lowest rated Group of 6 conference. It's them or Conference USA. So that is not exactly a schedule that sets itself up for having a couple losses and then being really comparable to other Group of 6 teams. So if, let's say they lose to UCLA and win the other 3, which is what I would expect, especially since the JMU game is at home, that's a very long trip. Toledo's a long trip, but San Diego State should win that game. Let's say they start 3-1 and go into Pac-12 play. It's not just that San Diego State would, of course, like to be a conference title contender. I think they will have to, without question, win the Pac-12 and have no more than 1 loss in conference play. I don't think they're going to be able to get 2 unless they beat UCLA. I don't think that they make a serious playoff push without making an appearance in the conference championship game, winning it, and having 1 conference loss. I think this is a schedule that, look, they start with Texas State at home. We'll see what G.J. Kinney's team can put together. They go at Oregon State, first-year head coach, can be a tough place to play. Fresno State at home, tough state battle there because I'm very high on the Bulldogs and Matt Enns' team. At Colorado State, first-year head coach with Jim Moore. A lot of first-year head coaches in the Pac-12. It's the theme. You got Jamarcus Shepard at Oregon State. You got Kirby Moore at Washington State. That's who they play next. You got Jim Mora at Colorado State. Then the bye, and then they play Utah State and at Boise State. And that game at Boise State, week 12, the week before rivalry week or the week before the flex week in the Pac-12, that might decide San Diego State's season right then and there. Whether they go to the playoff, whether they're going to make the conference championship game, it could come down to that. But losing Rob Aurich to Nebraska is a sizable loss. Their defense was so unbelievably good last year. That's the biggest question I have about San Diego State. Can they get through the Pac-12 with their new defensive coordinator? And Aurich got hired to Nebraska for a reason. He was one of the best. That is easily one of my top 5 favorite coordinator hires across all of college football this year. And Nebraska's defensive staff last year wasn't good enough. So that's a tough loss for Sean Lewis and company, but I see the potential. I expect them to be a Pac-12 contender. I think them, along with Fresno State, are going to be the biggest challengers to Boise State, who should certainly be seen as the preseason conference favorites. And I think the odds are going to reflect that once the odds all come out. So, yeah, I have high hopes for San Diego State, and you might have to enjoy Sean Lewis while you can. Just the way it goes. He's been in a Power 4 school. He's been a head coach before. Somebody's going to hire this guy. It's just a matter of who. I don't know who that would be exactly, but somebody will. I don't think it'll be a school in the state of California, though. I think Sean Lewis will be elsewhere because Tosh Lapoi's not going anywhere. Tavita Pritchard just took over at Stanford. Lincoln Riley's fine at USC. Bob Chesney just got to UCLA. So he's probably leaving the state of California. That's if they have the sort of season that they are capable of. So Rory McIlroy won the Masters for the second straight year. I was very glad to see that. I'm a Rory McIlroy fan. Got me thinking. Who are the Rory McIlroys of college football? There are two that stand out immediately, and then there's another one that belongs in the conversation. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth, and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. That's TurboTax.com/local. The Rory McIlroys of college football are as follows. These would be programs that have been great for a long time. These are programs that have the maximum amount of investment, media coverage, hype, and pressure on a consistent basis that make them easy fodder for folks who just want to hate, be negative, tear them down, or heavily criticize them for not breaking through and winning the big one. These would be programs that, if you just look at their actual resume, are the envy of almost every single college football program in the country, save for a select few that have broken through and won a national championship or also been in a prolonged period of sustained success. And these are also programs that in the modern era have not broken through to the mountaintop. Now, one program here just misses because of that last qualifier I have in there, and it's Texas, because Texas did make and win. They went to 2 BCS national championship games, and they won one of them. So when I say modern era, that is to what I refer. BCS and later. To me, that's the modern era of college football. And yeah, the playoff is different, but that's what we're dealing with here. So the number one program that fits this description, especially because they've been doing it at the highest level of these 3 programs for the longest time, it is indeed Oregon. Oregon has been wildly successful. They have done everything except win a national championship. Everything you can think of. They've been to the game. They've won several conference championships. They've had a Heisman Trophy winner. They've had Heisman Trophy finalists. They have been in the playoff each of the last couple of years. They've won playoff games. They've won conference championships in 2 different leagues. They've won high-profile games. They've hosted College Game Day several times and won those matchups. They've won rivalry games. Anything positive you can say. They've elevated their recruiting, pulled in a top 5 class, highest-rated class in program history in 2026. You can say every positive thing about Oregon except that they've broken through and won a national championship. The other program that fits this description, to a lesser extent, but in the similar vein, especially when you emphasize the points of gets talked about a lot, has all the potential in the world, and hasn't broken through, Texas A&M. Texas A&M has been committed to the max for a very long time. They have not even been to the SEC championship game. They haven't been as successful as Oregon. Both were in the playoff last year. Texas A&M lost their game at home. Oregon got to the semifinal and got routed by Indiana. Texas A&M is in many ways the envy of a lot of programs in the country, because when folks hurl, accusations or disgruntled comments or frustrations at Texas A&M, what it ultimately comes down to is, well, you can just pay for anyone. You can go out and buy this class. You can recruit at this level, but you're not going to do this. And deep at the heart of that sentiment that the Aggies get a lot, jealousy. And all those folks that for a long time looked at Rory McIlroy and said, oh, you're never going to break through. This is the biggest similarity between the two. He's not going to do it. Rory's not oh, man, he can't do that. Texas A&M can't do that. I'll borrow a line from one Josh Pate. Can't or hasn't? What has Texas A&M been lacking for a long time? The right coach. Anybody want to try and argue that Mike Elko isn't a really good coach? He won at Duke. And in 2 years, he got Texas A&M to a place they hadn't been, and I don't even remember how long. That's winning double-digit games. Perennial 8-4, suddenly just went 11-2. And there was a hue of disappointment in Texas A&M season just because of how it ended. The loss to Texas after the 11-0 start, and then the loss to Miami at home in the playoff game. Disappointing finish to a very good and successful year. The third program that I'll throw in here, and before I mention them, actually, I just want to mention that there were some elements of Rory McIlroy to Ohio State under Ryan Day, and then Ryan Day broke through. And this is kind of my point of this particular segment. Oregon, Texas A&M, and Penn State is the third one I'm putting in here. Penn State under James Franklin for a lot. Can't win the big one. Hasn't won enough of these games. Well, Penn State finally had enough of that and said, we're moving on, and he is now coaching in Blacksburg, Virginia, with the Hokies, trying to bring them back to their days of ACC glory. I think he can do very well there. I think Matt Campbell can do very well at Penn State. But Penn State has developed a reputation. Nope, they get to this spot, and they don't come through every single time. And do you know how many programs would love to have what Penn State's track record is in the last 10 years in college football? You know how many would like to be Oregon or even Texas A&M with their actual on-field results, not to mention what happens off the field with their recruiting wins as well? Most. The number of programs that can look at these three and say, that's not good enough for us, is few and far between. The number's under 10. It might even be under 5. So for a long time, Rory McIlroy had a major championship drought. 11 years he went between major championships. And the questions just kept getting asked. Is he actually going to do it? Can he actually break through? I don't know. We've seen this so many times before. And all of a sudden, he's a 2-time Masters champion. Twice in a row. Only 3 other guys have done that. Some guys named Nick Faldo. Some of you might not know. How about Jack Nicklaus? Tiger Woods? Those names ring a bell? Yeah. These are all programs that I look at and say, their time to break through can be right around the corner at any point in time. All the fundamentals are there. I like their head coaches. I like their program trajectories. And yeah, there has been this kind of aura around them of, oh, no, can't break through. Oh, man. And you start to think in your head, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And then boom, all of a sudden it comes to fruition. All those programs fit that description. Texas A&M, Penn State, Oregon, the Rory McIlroys of college football. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.